Hello, friends, and welcome into another episode of Trust the Tape with your two best friends when it comes to Cowboys and probably pretty soon NFL draft coverage. My name is Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
And my last name is Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh!
And I'm joined by former Cowboy scout and the greatest drafter of all time and the founder of Crown Global Media, which you need to follow on YouTube, Crown Global Media. You get a lot of Brian and Botch Lombardi over there. The great and powerful Brian Broaddus.
Hey, Brian.
How you living?
Jeffrey, doing great, man. Yeah, I got since like Monday night we got a game, so that means I don't get to start on November 1st. And then so now I have to start November 2nd with my film work and stuff. So
I'm gonna be way ahead of you.
Have you already started? Have you already started on yours?
I've dabbled. I wouldn't say that I've actually started, but I'll start tonight just to be ahead of you to see how many days it takes you to be like, how many guys you got? And I'll be like 11. And you'd be like, I got 42.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
No, it's that time of year. And I used to be December 1st. And then I found that the pace that I could go at by starting 4 weeks early, you kind of, when you get to the end of it, you're kind of like, okay, my biggest thing was the thing that hurt me the most was not even looking at Puka Nacua. That's the one when you look at 220 something players and you don't look at one of the best players in the National Football League. That made me think like, bro, you need to start this thing a little earlier is what you need to do.
It's true. It's true. We can't have misses, Brian. We can't. No,
I missed on Puka Nacua.
I've gotten to the point where I'll just be comfortable that if there's a name that isn't on anyone's top 200 or 250 players, like, you know what? I'm probably going to miss a guy. And you know what? I'm just going to have to be okay. Just going to have to be okay. Shout out to everybody that's already in the chat before the show even started. We appreciate all of you guys, and we appreciate those of you who are rolling in on time. KG's rolling into the super chat. What a champ. Just to say this team makes me disappointed. Well, that's where we are. Brian, is it tank season?
I usually get a chuckle when I see the ice tank, sliding through the Ardennes forest or wherever it's going there. But I think there's reasons to still battle. Philadelphia's likely going to win this division. They seem to have found a way to, even when they don't play their absolute best, they find a way to play. Now they're dealing with injuries much like you are, but I think now you're battling to try and be a team that's going to get in the tournament somehow, some way. Defensively was just clearly not good enough the other day. You don't need me to tell you that. But we'll see. We'll see if in fact that maybe a couple of additions, maybe they do get maybe they do find their way through this trade. Me personally, I would look at it a couple different ways. I would say if I could go and get, say, Max Crosby, I'm just going to keep asking folks. Hey, it's, that's what I did when I worked for the Cowboys. You keep asking, and eventually, when they say, hey, there's no more trade deadline, then you put the phone up. But I'm keeping asking, if you try and get a guy like Max Crosby, I would also consider the same try and trade is take a second-round pick and go get Quinnen Williams is what I would do. So I would take potentially my 2 1s, and then I would go and then take my second and go get Quinnen Williams is what I would do. So I would try and get. So talking to my guys and gals around the league, they seem to believe that Quinnen Williams could be had for a 2. So I'm interested. If I have the potential to add 2 Pro Bowl or 2 All-Pro type players with a couple of picks, like one of the picks I obtain or my own pick in this draft and my second round pick, and to add those 2 like right now, I'm not looking at this as just 10 games. I'm looking at this as 2-3 years is what I'm looking at. And that would sure save me from I'd still have my own pick or Green Bay's pick. And then I would have the 2 players. So I would try that approach. I would try, and maybe it wouldn't help you this year. We'll see. For 10 games, it very well might. But you're looking at 2 players for the future that surely could help you could build around that direction.
And that is my only rule for the Cowboys. If you're making a trade, any trade that you make that has a contract that expires after this season, I believe you are wasting your time.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
My bare minimum, and you made
yeah.
me look it up because you said his name and I wanted to see his contract. My bare minimum is you sign me you trade for a real player,
Mhm.
and that real player better be here in 2026 and 2027. And that is
Right.
Quinnen Williams' contract, 2 more years. Max
Yeah.
Crosby has at least that. It might be another
Yeah.
year on
I
top.
think he's got 3. So
Okay.
yeah, my threshold is exactly what you walked us through. And it's saving me. It's players that are established. It's players that could clearly fit a need to what's going on with this. Listen, hey, it's been disappointing. I think that Oso Digizua would tell you that he's disappointed by the way he's played. I think there's a lot of guys on defense that would say that. He's been double teamed. He hasn't. Matter of fact, I mean, just watching the tape, I think Solomon Thomas has quietly had a really good year. And we don't nearly talk about him or want to get him involved as much. With the situation, but it's getting time. It's getting time. And Steven and Jerry and even Shoddy have kind of come out and their tone is a little different. And here's my hope is also too, if you can make a trade and then you say that Overshown comes in and say you get that and say that Revel comes in and gives you a little bump at cornerback. He's the big unknown right now. I just know one thing watching him play at East Carolina. I love the kid. Now, will he be as good as he was his pre-knee? Yeah, we'll see. I just know one thing watching him play, he could help. He could absolutely help. Now, whether that translates into helping this defense this year, we'll see, but he's going to get that opportunity. But you add a couple of draft picks, or excuse me, you add a couple of trades and then add Overshown to this thing, it could look a little different. It could look a little different for your football team trying to maybe get into the tournament, probably not as the division winner.
No, I think we've got to get to 17 games. So you used to be able to go 9-7. They can't do that. They're not going to get to 9-7-1 is probably what you have to do as the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Williams in the super chat, and this is the title of the show today. What are the Cowboys going to do when Overshown and Revel return and the Chiefs and Lions drop 40? And I think we've talked about it.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
If you're looking for, listen, we could sit there and have shows all day just beating up on how shitty this football team is.
For sure.
We could do that. I mean, but if you really want to try and figure some things out and to say, throw up your hands and that's it. That's cool. I ain't telling you how to be a fan, but I'm just telling you though, the way that they listen, Stephen Jones, when he comes on 105.3 The Fan, and the questions need to be asked to him, you thought you solved the run defense issues when you made this trade. Obviously, you haven't.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, you haven't. You haven't. And so now you have to ask the questions of, and everybody in that personnel department and Will McClay and Shoddy and all those guys have to be asking the questions. Where did we go wrong here? And what can we do to change maybe the direction that we're currently on right now?
So as far as Overshown goes, I think
we're asking a lot of him, and he might deliver. That son of a gun might deliver. We're putting a lot of pressure on him. A lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, I think he's one of my my favorite people in terms of what I know of him, just from watching and listening to him talk and seeing the way that he kind of just goes about his business. And I think if there was a guy you were going to bet on to have your knee destroyed, not just an ACL, more than that, and to come back from it and give himself a chance, because what gives yourself a chance is to be a freaking working dude.
Yeah.
I think he's the sort of guy that gives himself a chance. What I worry about,
he's inspirational. He really is inspirational when you watch him work.
Yeah, but I think the one thing is, and this is not on DeMarvion Overshown. Like DeMarvion Overshown says all the right things, works the right way, and is going to try his best to be the best player that he can be. But it's just kind of the way that they do things is if something is wrong,
Right.
it's what is the next thing we can prop up as the hope. And that feels unfair that DeMarvion Overshown is supposed to be the savior of a defense that is just atrocious top to bottom. And I don't think he can do that because I don't think anyone can do that. But if my hope for Overshown is that when they put him on the field this year, that he just looks reminiscent of who he was. And then we can hope for continued growth and consistency as he goes. I just hope he's the same guy that when they run the ball outside, he freaking teleports across field.
There we go.
Smacks somebody.
There we go.
And it gives us something where we can say, okay, guys, yes, we need help here, 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 and here. Thank God we got that guy.
The thing that I'm just asking from him, I need 2 more stops a game. I need to give Dak Prescott in this offense the ball 2 more times a game. You know, I need, and unfortunately for Dallas, they have to score on 6 possessions to win football games.
Right.
You know, when Dallas doesn't score on 6 possessions of the game, they're generally going to lose.
Yeah.
I'm just asking Overshown. It worked really, really well in the Commanders game. The way they got off the field, the way they got the ball back to the offense, the way they created punting situations. You know, even punting situations could give the ball to Turpin, which could be offense.
Right.
You know, I'm just asking for 2 more stops a game. I'm not asking for Overshown to have 21 tackles a game. I'm just asking for him to make 2 or 3 in a game that give me the ball back for my offense and let George Pickens and CD and Williams and those guys go to work. That's all I'm asking.
And I think the good news for him, it's not good news for the Cowboys defense, but the good news for him specifically is the bar for me watching the Cowboys linebacker play is literally on the floor. Literally on the floor.
Way low.
Like I've reached a point with the Cowboys defense where we always call for like, put this guy in and bench that guy and put this guy in and bench that guy. And usually it turns out, look, the coaches watch these guys every day, right?
Right.
And there's a reason that player X isn't playing over player Y.
Right.
But I have reached the point with one specific player who plays every snap.
Oh, Murray, just go ahead and say it. Yeah, Murray. But see, the thing about it is,
they don't have another middle linebacker, and they don't want him to play middle linebacker.
Jack Sanborn, though, and we were all like, Jack Sanborn. Metrics will tell you that when they run the ball against the Cowboys and Jack Sanborn's on the field, it's 3.9 a carry. When he's off the field, it's 5.6. Now, I'm not asking Jack Sanborn to play coverage.
Right.
That's your issue right now, is that when you put him in space that way, it doesn't look pretty. Yeah. But for example, Shamar James, metrics will tell you on field 6.1 against the run, you know?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like, more Shamar James, but what are you getting out of that? I think you're getting the occasional really good play, the hustle, the run, the tackle. You're getting that. But there's been some issues with this team when it comes to the linebacker. They have not been good enough up the middle of this defense. They just haven't. Starts at the defensive tackle, hadn't been good enough. Linebackers inside haven't been good enough. Safety play haven't been good enough. You know, I mean, even the guys that the backup guys are playing. Listen, I'm not putting it all on with poor Reedy Stewart's playing free safety for you in a game. Yeah. I mean, that's out of necessity. That's break glass in case of emergency right there.
Yeah, because someone has to line up there. You're not
Somebody
anticipating.
has to line. You don't want to.
You're going to lose 1, 2, 3, and it was Clark getting hurt, losing 4 safeties. You're not usually anticipating. Nobody has 6 safeties on their roster.
No, nobody does.
And I do think that the Sanborn versus Murray or James thing, like that makes sense to me because I think it's pretty like I want them to keep playing Shamar James for the simple reason that he's a rookie. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he runs and he looks good getting to the ball, but there are things that there are things that he is going through right now that affected him while he was at the University of Florida.
Yeah.
You know, they're
he's light, he's movable. He's not always right.
Yeah.
But again, because he's a rookie, like I'll take that. Go ahead. But I need to put somebody out there with you that knows what they're doing and isn't the most like Shamar James is probably what 15. I'm just guessing here, 15 pounds lighter than Kenneth Murray.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Shamar James isn't playing patty cake and pretending he's a kicker or punter every time an offensive lineman gets on him. I can't have that.
No, it's been bad. It's been bad. And you understand. I mean, you know, you think that maybe, you know, you could catch, you know, they Eric Kendricks. They caught Eric Kendricks, you know. I mean, Mike Zimmer had a plan. Listen, Mike Zimmer had a plan for Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks delivered. Matt Eberflus has a plan for Jack Sanborn. It really hasn't delivered. These coaches, see, this is the problem with this organization. And Will McClay has to play this game every day. He has to play the game with the Joneses, and he has to play the game with his coaching staff. He has to come up with players that the coaching staff is cool dealing with.
Yeah.
You know? It's not like, hey, I'm going to bring you a guy and he's going to, you coach him up and make it work.
And I think that is, let me make sure I'm caught up on super chats before I go down this road, and my ADHD will probably forget the road that I'm trying to go down here in a second, but we'll see what happens. Stephen Jones eventually takes over. Are we just going to live this for the next 30 years? Him and JJ have the same football philosophy. And Brian, you could probably answer it better than I can.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a difference in terms of, I'm going to try to not make it personal, Brian. I'm going to try. I think there is a difference in the level of ego, jocks and socks, want to be on the sideline, want to be besties with the players.
No,
I
you're
think
right.
there's a difference, and I maybe put some hope in that when it's Steven, that maybe he doesn't like need to pretend to the media that he knows everything about his team and that he's a qualified GM, and maybe he's happy just letting somebody run the thing.
That's
maybe.
To me. Yeah, that to me, the noise is going to become so loud because you're not getting the results. I think they realize that they've effed up in a lot of areas. I think Stephen Jones has. I think Stephen Jones is now going, okay, but I'm not trying to give Will McClay a pass here, but I know one thing working in that organization, that guy that sits in that chair, whether it was Larry Lacewell or Jeff Ireland or Tom Siskowski or whoever sat in that chair, that's a difficult job. That is a difficult job because you're dealing with all these elements swirling around you. And I think that there's going to come a point in time where Stephen Jones realizes, and maybe when it's time for Will McClay to like, hey, I want to go run my own deal, or I want the opportunity to go run my own deal. When you put the Joneses' feet to the fire in that way, they'll change. Now, they might just tell Will, fine, go ahead. You can leave and we'll figure something else. I think Stephen Jones is more likely to give up personnel control than his dad. But I'll say this right now. I really don't think that Jerry is running the day-to-day operation.
Right.
Stephen is doing that, but Stephen knows he needs Will McClay. I don't think this is I think that Will McClay, and it sounds like I'm, giving all this, but I do feel like if Will McClay had the opportunity to run this football team like he really wanted to, and Will McClay and I have had our issues. I respect the guy. I really, really, really do. But I think that he is handicapped in a way by how this organization is currently run, from the top. And I think that if you allowed him to go and be, if you went out and allowed him to be like Howie Roseman is in Philadelphia, where Jeff Lurie and I worked for Jeff Lurie. Jeff Lurie wanted to be involved. Trust me, we were talking about the Randy Moss thing. He's like, Brian, I don't feel comfortable having Randy Moss on my board. Okay, good. Well, fine. Hey, what about this? What about this guy? What about that? And he was involved, but he also, at the end of the day, again, let us do what we needed to do to pick the roster. And that's where we need to get to that point with the Dallas Cowboys. We need Stephen Jones to allow Will McClay. And I've made this discussion too. I think the coaches here are way too involved. Way too involved. And that's I used to tell coaches this all the time. Hey, I don't call third down defenses. Don't come in here and try and tell me how we need to do this, And I think that's something that is something that really needs to be evaluated. And they've had 3 different defensive coordinators. This is why your defense looks the way it is. Because it's 3 different coordinators have come in there and tried to put their stamp. And why? Because, and this is where the Cowboys needed to do a better job when they hired or looking for coaches, when it's the one-day evaluation, let's go get this guy, instead of, wait a minute, what does our defense currently, the players, how do they play? What kind of players do we have? What kind of scheme do we have?
Right.
Why are we just going, oh, we know Matt Eberflus, great guy, let's go get him. Well, does Matt Eberflus's scheme fit what Zimmer or what Dan Quinn's done? No, it doesn't. And now your team looks like crap because they're trying to kind of play to a scheme that they're not really comfortable with. That's the biggest problem with Diggs right now. I think Diggs hates playing in this scheme. I really do.
Yeah.
But they need to. I'm sorry about the rant, folks. But they need to give Will McClay the opportunity to pick players. B, take the coaches out of the process of how this team is built, and then C, make sure that when you start to interview coaches, potential coaches, that their philosophies match how your team currently looks or how your team is currently built. Or if your team's having success playing a certain way, go find those coaches. Don't go and say, we know Matt Eberflus, he's a good dude. Had a steak with him the other day. Don't do that.
Cowboys, baby. I totally agree with that. I've always felt that way, where even if you go back to, and maybe look, there may be coaches out there that have a great history, like just watching him break down film on TV. I believe if Nick Saban was your defensive coordinator, you could let him pick the players, because I do believe that when he's looking at something, that he knows.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah.
But I think in the case of most coaches, just go coach. I referenced you yesterday on our DLS Cowboys podcast with the Parcells thing about the offensive lineman who was like, Bill, I know what you want.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the guy that you're telling me
Jacob Rogers.
He's not what you want. You don't know what you want because there's things you like that you have told us you like that he doesn't have, and you're telling me you like him. You don't know what you're looking at. I'll get you the players. I'll get them.
That's the thing. It was actually right. Jacob Rogers, 2nd round pick that didn't do anything for us. Bill, Tom Siskowski Tom Siskowski was the one that did a lot of the offensive line stuff when he was a West Coast scout. He found Larry Allen and all that stuff like that. Tom says, Bill, Jacob Rogers is everything you hate in an offensive lineman. And Bill still drafted him. That was the influence. And what happens is you get in the room and you're picking players, and Will now feels obligated, like, okay, the scouts got this pick. Okay, well, maybe we got to get the coaches a pick. I believe with all my heart, until somebody tells me different, Will McClay drafted Mozzie Smith because of Dan Quinn. I believe that. Dan Quinn wanted Mozzie Smith, and he drafted him. And that's the tightrope that Will McClay has to walk. And that's why your team looks the way it is, because and I asked Stephen Jones the question the other day. I said, you had 3 different defensive coordinators. Your team is this way because of the defensive coordinators. And he didn't slap it away. He said, yeah, you made a point. Yeah. This is the struggle. This is the struggle that they go through when the hiring process is not where it needs to be when you're starting to talk about the coaches. Yeah, Coach White Cotton and the offensive line coaches, those guys, great job. Great job. I mean, they've come in there, hit the ground running and all that. But when your players don't somewhat match the scheme, there are going to be problems. Now, they'll say, well, you'll go, Brian, well, what about when Bill Parcells told Mike Zimmer, hey, you're going to coach a 3-4 defense? Bill didn't think that he had a nose tackle because it was Leroy Glover, undersized, great player. That win. great tackler, undersized. Dexter Coakley, undersized. But those guys all fit. They all started kind of playing. They all played to the level of where Bill's like, damn, I was wrong about those guys. I was wrong about those guys. So, but we don't have any damn I was wrong about those guys. You know what I'm saying?
Knight wants to know why the Cowboys play prevent defense with the cap. I mean, that's just a decision that every team makes, and the teams that generally play it the way that the Cowboys do are generally run by the family that owns the team. Check the Bengals. They run it a lot like the Dallas Cowboys run it in terms of not wanting to extend themselves and risk a bunch of dead money. They want the things that they're paying for year to year to fit on their budget sheet, and they don't want to feel like they've wasted money.
Oh, they feel like, I mean, they have to feel like the Diggs is, is taking them. I mean, there has to be a talk about putting Diggs on NFI. There had to have been some talk about that when what happened to him at his home. And now, and that NFI stuff, having to pay him, that had to be brought up. They're doing him a favor. They are doing him a huge favor right now by still paying him.
Yeah, you know some stuff?
You never know.
What happened to the house, Brian?
Can't say.
What happened to the house, Brian?
Can't say.
Could he play football right now?
They're doing a huge favor, this young man. Doing a huge favor.
Could they play football? Could he play football right now?
I'm just telling you, Jeff. His opposite knee's now a problem, by the way.
Well, that's what happens when you have a bad knee and you don't get it strong enough, and then you compensate, and then you end up with two bad knees. Trust me. Done it. Yeah. Dro Nose is in the super chat. Mozzie's late getting off the snap. Sam Williams doesn't have a counter when O-linemen reset and their pass pro. Nealon's getting pancaked by tight ends, and linebackers don't fill gaps. DBs don't talk. Yeah, they got a lot of issues on defense. Okay. Yeah. They got a lot of issues on defense.
Yeah. The defensive coordinator's got issues too. They got issues with the coordinator,
Yeah, and I think so. One of the things that I think would be important for the Cowboys, and again, all of it filters up, I believe, obviously, to the very, very, very top. And like, there's not a clear process or plan in anything, especially when you're changing coordinators all the time. And as you mentioned, the coordinators have a lot of say in the players you pick. Dan Quinn picked Sam Williams. Dan Quinn picked Nashawn Wright. I'm trying to think of other specific names. Those are the two.
Boss man fat.
Kelvin Joseph,
How about Rod Marinelli took Tristan Hill.
He took Taco Charlton over TJ Watt because TJ Watt didn't put his hand down. If you just let the guys who spend all of their time getting to know who these players are and how good they are, pick your players, you'll have a better shot at it. And especially because Will McClay literally has his job because he existed as a person who could say, hey, coaches, I know what you like. I know what you want. Hey, owner and general manager, I know what you like. I know what you want. I can find that. But then they still just let so many different people pick. Like Jerry, for the size of the ego he has and the insistence that I need the credit because I am the decision maker, then lets everyone else make decisions that aren't going to line up with other people's ideas and plans. And
they listen to too many people. That's a Jerry Jones. That's a Jerry Jones special right there. They listen to too many people. I lived it. I listened. A general manager from the New York Yankees, Gene Michael, told us why we should sign Drew Henson or have Drew Henson on our team. He's the general manager for the New York Yankees. Yeah. He's telling us how to run our football operation. Okay. And we're taking it like, stick Michael. He knows talent. What does he eat? He's a baseball general manager.
that's our football team.
What I should have done is said, hey, listen, you got this guy named Mariano Rivera. You might want to use him more. Maybe
late fourth quarter for sure.
Maybe he could save a few games for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
BT's in the super chat. Special teams may be bad as the D. All the penalties. Turpin's been a huge disappointment. They don't switch the field. They need to step up as a unit to relieve a little bit of pressure off defense. Example, kicker. Turpin, like his job, you just don't get a ton of opportunities. And if your defense never forces a punt, but if you just need a kick return for a touchdown, I'm with you. I'll take one. It'd be great.
There's a lot of those guys that are playing defense for you right now as starters that are on that special teams. And I do believe he's got a point, though. Your core special teams might not be good enough. It might not be good enough.
Well, they're not good enough at anything because of the way
offensively they're good. They got some things going on.
But
by the way, that left tackle the left tackle in the game the other day, I know he gave up 4 pressures. He got better the other day playing football. The right tackle has questions. The right tackle,
I
Nate
think
Thomas needs to be more involved at right tackle is what we need to do.
I think that if I had to put in order how well the offensive line played in that game, I think I would have Brock Hoffman last.
Brock Hoffman wasn't good. Tyler Smith wasn't good. Steele wasn't good. And Booker, I think the best player of the group, honestly, I think the inside 3 that you needed to win with the inside 3 and you didn't do it. You just didn't do it with the inside
I think in
3.
pass pro, every time that they would drop people out and bring linebackers and switch things around, Hoffman ended up blocking nobody and was late to stuff.
Tyler Smith had that kind of game too, Jeff, just watching him. There was a lot of air blocking in that game as well. Kind of like, well, what happened? And I don't know if it's now the knee has become where it's cost him some mobility. I hope that's not the case, but it was a disappointing game for those 3 inside guys. And then I think Steele had, Steele, there were 8 pressures from the tackles. There were 9 pressures from the guys inside.
Well, that's 3 apiece. That means the tackles are worse. If it's 4-4, I don't know if it was
no, it was 4-5, and then add them all up inside. That's what it was. Yeah.
Vance in the super chat, preach, Brian. Wish we would hire coaches who will scheme to the talent and not force players into round holes. I mean, it would start
that's on the front
hiring
office,
the best coaches. It would start with hiring the best coaches, and the Cowboys don't do that. They don't try to.
That's the front office right there. That is like when you don't have exhaustive coaching searches, then and really dig into the whys and why nots, then you're going to have some issues.
And I will say this, here's another reason. If you want to have hope beyond Jerry when it gets to Steven, like just the very simple conversation they had on I won't call it a documentary because when the person who it's about controls what's on it, that's not a documentary. But the celebration of the 90s Cowboys special, the fact that Steven sat in the room and Jerry was like, with coaches, it ain't about X's and O's. And Steven was like, I think it is about X's and O's. I was like, hey, at least the next guy is going to try to hire the coaches who are like good at scheming football. Gary with a 50 bomb. Love both you guys. I need to ask, why is the Dallas media so soft on Jerry and Steven and Shoddy? I listened to all the interviews. They accept the dumb BS answers. They never push back. Here in New York, the media pushes back way harder. I will say this before Brian, if you want to answer, because I don't interview them anymore, and that's great. You can't being hard on Jerry. There's no point to it. Like Jerry, you ask him a question and he's going to say whatever he came to say, even if it has literally nothing to do with what you asked. Then you could ask a follow-up and you could literally tell him, hey, you didn't answer that. So what I was asking is, and then he'll give you another answer that he came on the radio to say that has nothing to do with what you asked. You're not going to get what you want from Jerry. He's going to tell you what he came to say.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, this is one of those things that, and it always comes down to the East Coast media is tougher on this, that, and the other. Good. If that's, that's cool. I do think, let me say this. I think it's a difficult job. And when you start to talk about toughness and what you want to do and how you want to phrase your question, I think you completely nailed it with when you ask him a question, he'll redirect. Or Steven will redirect, or somebody will redirect.
And the goal is to get an answer. The goal is not.
And the goal is to get an answer.
The angst of the fan base at them. The goal is to get the best answer you can.
I think if you go back and watch Gavin Dawson challenge Stephen Jones during training camp about how they do things in this organization, and Stephen Jones says, "You're 90% wrong about everything you just said." I would go back. There's been some tense moments I know on our station with asking Jerry and Steven questions, but I also would challenge people who like to comment about this. If you were in the same shoes of us, I wonder really how many times you really, really would ask that question.
Most would ask for an autograph.
Listen, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, but you have to be very mindful of the people you're working with every week. You have to be mindful of that. And sure, I can't tell you how many times, whether it was the current PR director or Rich Dalrymple have commented like, you guys were a little hard on him today, or you guys shouldn't be doing that. They've come back at us a couple of times, and that you're like, okay, great. Well, we just got to keep going.
Yeah.
But I really would be curious if you were in the same shoes as Jeff and I, folks. that if you really, really, really would ask that tough question, because I'm willing to bet you might get a question, but it's not going to have that same venom that you're just asking about right now.
Well, because if you want the question to be, hey, Jerry, you're a dumbass and you suck, you do realize that
there's ramifications for that.
The next interview he does will be with a different show. Do you want to do this interview? Because if your question isn't even a question, it's just an attack. So you'd be like, well, there's no point to this. I guess I'll go to a different person who will ask me a question.
Yeah.
Vance in super chat. Let's try to get these knocked out and get out of here. Most important question here. Who does BB want for LSU? Side note, Lane is coming to Gainesville, baby. Do you have a coach?
What? I tell you what, man, I'd love to have Lane Kiffin is the guy you absolutely hate when you compete against him, but when he's on your team, you love Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin to be at LSU. I think Lane Kiffin is the type of coach in this day and age that like your program needs when it comes to NIL, dealing with the fan base, going out and recruiting players, having an understanding of how to put things together. I think he's what these coaches nowadays need to be. I'd love to be able to have him, and I'd love to believe that at LSU that we can be very competitive with Florida. Florida's a great job, by the way. Florida football, that is a great program, a great history. You know, if you go back, and I could go all the way back to the Charlie Pell days into the 80s and knowing how to compete against that crew with Emmitt Smith and all those guys. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how this one plays out. I'd love to have him as a coach at LSU.
And Cole's in the super chat. I feel like Josh Butler was good last year and he could really help us, but maybe I'm wrong. Love the show.
I don't know how healthy Josh. I think he's making progress. He's the one guy I get no updates on. I never get an update on Josh Butler. Never do. But maybe I need to ask. Hopefully in the next coming weeks.
All right, Brian. Have a great day. Everybody,
thank you, Jeffrey.
Trust the tape. If you don't trust the tape, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Is it the hot dog or is it the bun? The most important question in sports.
Now this is a hot dog bun. I think it's a hot dog too.
Remember, you have no idea what anybody's going